Welcome to Inside Track with Bruce Ash and Ed Wilkinson on the Live the Dream Media Network.
Hey, are we on? All right. Hello, everybody, and a very pleasant good morning to you, wherever you may be. I'm still used to that afternoon thing. Bruce Ash and Ed Wilkinson coming to you live and in color from the Ultra Luxe Essential Pest Control Studios. Thanks for joining us today. We have another action-packed show today on Inside Track. It's Big Wednesday, and as we're following late-breaking news from around the world and even a little bit of news from here in Tucson, Eb, nice to see you.
Good to see you, Bruce. Both Bruce and I hope you will support our sponsors who help us pay the man, my company, Wilkinson Wealth Management, our friend Eric Rudin at Essential Pest, Jamie Kipper at Tucson Iron and Metal Retail, Bruce's three-generation company, Paul Ash Commercial. When you call on them, please let them know you found them from Inside Track.
To talk with us or our guests, well, we don't have any guests today. It's a free balling show, as Chris said.
If you want to be a guest, call in.
520-771-5101 or send a message to us on the Live the Dream Media Facebook page. Belated Happy Father's Day to you, Eb.
And to you, Bruce.
And to everybody. My first ever handwritten Father's Day cards from our Tucson grandkids. We enjoyed a long phone call with our Virginia kid as well. And happy belated Flag Day. Happy belated 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army's formation. How do you as a Marine feel about that?
I think it's great. We've got to have somebody to take over after we save America.
I asked you that question.
And, the good part is Donald Trump celebrated his birthday by having a huge parade.
Well, yes, but but not exactly that.
Well, that's what CNN said, Bruce.
I know. Well, we all listen to CNN. You're right. That's just the cheap and the cheeky thing about those guys at CNN. They always want to make this some nefarious sort of Donald Trump thing, okay? This event, this whole military parade was dreamt up under Joe Biden.
Absolutely.
In his administration nearly 2 years ago. This has been in the works.
But they don't talk about that.
No, of course not. The only place you'll find it is on so-called right-wing radio.
Right-wing extremist radio.
Yeah. Over the weekend, for some of you who visit my Facebook page, I posted stuff about, because being the 250th anniversary of the Army and Father's Day weekend, I wanted to highlight my father, Paul, and my father-in-law, Simon Moret. And thanks, everybody, for your likes and for your comments that you made. I'll talk a little about my father in a second. Simon Moret, my father-in-law, Jane's dad, he was actually in the Army before Pearl Harbor.
Wow.
He had been a cadet in kind of an Army sort of training course for a couple of years, like 38 and 39. And for him, that was a way to get paid a couple bucks because his parents didn't have much money and get fed 2 meals a day.
Yes.
Which he was very happy about. Sort of the military version of the Civil Conservation Corps. And my father-in-law was in Patton's Army. He was in the Super Six. It was a mobile armor group, and they landed in Le Havre about 45 days after D-Day, and 19 days after he stepped on French ground. He was he and his battalion were attacked by a mortar barrage, and he saved a lot of lives that day. Pardon me, and more importantly to this story, he was severely wounded and taken off the battlefield. His knee blown off, injuries to his head and to his arms, and he was in a military hospital for 13 months
Wow.
in a body cast for most of
Wow.
that period of time. And, you know, he had he wanted to be an engineer. And when he left the Army and finally got out of the hospital, he was given an opportunity to go to MIT, to Harvard, and he decided he didn't want to do that because he wasn't sure he could walk, especially in icy, snowy weather. So they went to the University of Alabama.
Wow.
And that's where my brother-in-law was born and my sister-in-law were born. And Simon, when he got out of the Army, became an engineer and actually went to work, he spent the rest of his working life in the defense field. He worked at then Hughes Aircraft, now Raytheon, and was one of the quality control engineers both for Raytheon and the U.S. Air Force.
Okay.
For the Maverick, for the tow systems. I mean, he led a life where he did a lot of good things to help defend this country. He was awarded the Bronze Star and Purple Heart for his activities on that afternoon in August 1945, and he never really talked about the Army. Certainly never talked about what he did in the Army until almost 6 months before his death.
Typical soldier.
Yeah. And I asked him the question one afternoon. Both of our sons were here, and we were kind of surrounded him. He was sitting in a chair, and we're kind of like sitting on the carpet in front of him, you know, listening to what he had to say. And I said, I asked him, Poppy, you were there fighting for our country, and you know, Hitler, you had to know he was killing Jews at that time, and he was such an evil person. I said, what would go through your head every day as you were, you know, going into battle? He said, Bruce, you don't get it. He said, I wasn't doing this for my country. Oh yeah, I was, but I was just living day to day and making sure that the guy next to me on one side and the guy next to me on the other side made it through the day to fight another day. And, you know, that sort of stoic heroism is part of why we're Americans and what we're all about, don't you think?
And that's what differentiates us from everybody else out there.
We are an exception.
That's why we are citizens.
Yeah,
And the Brits are subjects.
that's right.
Name one other country that you can do the things there that you can do here.
Well, literally, there's none other. And again, I mean, you know, I look at my family. Your family's been in America for a long, long time.
Since the Mayflower.
My parents on both sides, their parents came in the early 1900s, and they weren't able to come into Ellis Island or any of the major ports of entry. They went to Canada because they didn't have much education, they had no money, and they had no prospects. And eventually, they made their way to America.
How long did that take?
For them to come here, or to get from Canada to here,
From Canada to here.
probably 5 to 6 years.
That's not bad, Bruce.
Yeah, I mean, they saved whatever money they could to come across. And on my mother's side, they still have a bunch of probably now, you know, fourth generation aunts and uncles, you know, who are still in Canada, and they probably still speak French the way they did when they lived, you know, when they lived there in my grandmother's time.
Now, they didn't speak French when they got there.
No, they spoke Italian. And on one side, they spoke Italian. That was my grandfather's side. And on the other side, they spoke French because they were from the south of France.
Okay.
My grandmother was actually born in Nice, France.
Okay.
And so to your question, because it's a great question, I sort of gauge our family's success being an American by a writing that our oldest son did for Congressman Renzi in 2003 that was entered into the congressional record. This is the only place where, in less than a century, or just over a century, I should say, a family could come from nothing for reasons, getting away, on my father's side, it was to get away from the Tsar of Russia.
Sure.
And become, successes in America. Yeah, my dad had made a lot of money and all that, but to have that next generation working in Congress, the things that he wrote for people to say in the congressional record, to me, that was really what it was about, becoming an American.
It's incredible.
I mean, what in your family, what you've been here so long, but what do you think being an American from your perspective, from your family perspective, means to you and to everybody in your family?
Well, it means everything. I'm a descendant from John Warren, who came over on the Mayflower. We've had family members in everything from the American Revolution up to the Gulf War. Because of me, when I was in, absolutely nothing happened. So that was great.
You kept the country safe?
I kept the country safe.
And kept the world order.
And then when the Gulf War kicked off, it was 2 years after I got out of the Marine Corps. I called back up and said, hey, I got my stuff packed. I'm ready to go. They said, yeah, you and 35,000 others stand in line. It's like, crap, I missed it again. But, I'm named after a relative, Elbridge Gerry, who was a governor of Massachusetts, minister to France, was involved in the XYZ affair, vice president of the United States under James Madison, and signed the Declaration of Independence. So
I didn't know that.
So that's a lot for me
Yeah.
to live up to. And when you take a look at the people that signed the Declaration of Independence, they basically pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor, and some cases gave up 2 out of the 3.
Right.
They never gave up their honor, but a lot of people ended up giving up their lives and their fortunes. These are traitors to the British Empire.
Right.
These are people that said enough is enough. And, when you take a look at the history of the United States for the past 250 years, my mom's 90. By the way, I was back there seeing her, and I'll tell you that story. She's doing good.
Good.
But think about it. Here's a gal that has lived 1/3 of the life of the United States.
Yeah.
We're still a young country. I was over in England, Scotland, and Wales on my honeymoon in 1986. And we were walking into churches and bars that have been in continuous operation longer than the United States was even known about. And you take a look
Some of those churches, 1,400 years now.
Oh, yeah. You take a look at University of Glasgow, starting in 1452, 1453. If you were in the very first graduating class of University of Glasgow, and now you've got to go under world history and you're taking your exam, and you're down to the last question, the earth is A, round, B, flat, and you answered round, you flunked.
Right.
Now, there were a lot of people, to include, the Greeks, that were able to prove mathematically that the earth was round. But a lot of people thought it was still flat even back then.
Yeah.
And it wasn't for another 40 years that Columbus got a loan.
And the hardliners maybe longer than that.
And it's like a friend of mine said, when I got back from the Flat Earth Society, where we talked about how they faked the moon landing. But we are a young country, but look how far we have progressed in just those 250 years.
And so, as you were talking about the period of time that it takes a poor immigrant coming to this country to attain wealth and prosperity, and
They can do it in one
reputa-
generation.
In one generation, and the period of time that the United States has been a nation, less than 250 years. We're going to celebrate the independence, the Declaration of Independence next year. In that period of time, no power has ever arose in that short a period of time the
No.
way we have, and accomplished the sort of things. And it's because of that exceptionalism
Absolutely.
that we like to talk about.
And that's why people, excuse me, that's why people come here to this country. I grew up in Michigan, in the Detroit area, downriver area. And one of the family friends was a guy named Heinz Prechter. He came to the United States from Germany with, like $5 in his pocket. And he started the American Sunroof Company.
Mm.
And he's the first guy to do sunroofs.
This is for vehicles.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's the first guy to put sunroofs into cars. And it started in 1965 in Los Angeles, California. Moved to Detroit because that's where the cars were. And he became a multi-millionaire. And he did it coming from Germany with like $5 in his pocket and a dream. And I remember meeting George Bush, the senior.
Yep, HW.
One time. And I said, Mr. President, you and I have a friend in common, Heinz Prechter. And he goes, oh God, Heinz, great American. Heinz basically rebuilt the downriver Detroit area.
So what's downriver?
So Grosse Pointe Farms, Wyandotte, Trenton, that whole area. So everything from Detroit south.
Okay.
And he basically revitalized that entire area. And this is a guy that started with nothing and was able to do that in, his first.
He came to the United States before World War II or after World War II?
Oh, after World War II. He came in the 60s.
Oh, my.
And
That's
was able
amazing.
to. Oh, yeah. And was able to do all this. And so no other country gives you that opportunity other than the United States. Just like you, I owe everything to this country. And growing up, it wasn't a question I was going to go into the Marine Corps. It was just a matter of time.
Question of when.
Right. I knew I was going. That's just the way it was. That's just the way we grew up. That's just what you did. And all the lessons that I've learned in Boy Scouts, in the Marine Corps, carry me through today and make me what I am today.
So let's talk about scouting for a second, because I have a 7-year-old grandson back in Virginia, and he's very interested in getting involved in scouting. And when I heard that, I said to my son and daughter-in-law, this is great news, particularly living out in the country the way they are. It would be great news even in an urban setting. But I was thrilled that he wants to be a scout.
Absolutely.
The opportunities, again, that you don't get in school, and these are opportunities that you earn as well.
Right. You
And-
rarely get those opportunities anywhere.
Absolutely.
But you're right. You do earn all of that, and that's part of it. Nothing is really given to you. I mean, they guide you, but you earn every bit of that. And, to take kids, the Boy Scouts, which is now Scouting USA, which that's
Right.
a different story. But
Yeah.
Back when I grew up, the Boy Scouts was designed to teach young boys how to be young men. And just by its very nature, how to be leaders. Because in order to be a leader, you've got to be a follower. You've got to know how
You
to
gotta
follow.
learn from somebody.
Right. You have to learn how to follow before you can learn how to lead, before you can lead. But the confidence that the Boy Scouts gives you, gave me, I can change a tire, I can shoot, I can, trap animals, I can, start a fire,
and
I can live in the snow.
And the boys who end up getting their Eagle Scout, these kids are doing stuff in the sciences and in academia.
Absolutely.
And most of the U.S. astronauts who went to the moon were all Eagle Scouts.
Absolutely. Because once again,
prepares you.
All that training prepares you to where you go in knowing there's nothing you can't overcome. I mean, that's just the way that is.
So let's further chat about this Flag Day celebration, the honoring our U.S. Army on its 250th year. What they were saying about it, they tried to make it all about Trump. And they were trying to make it all about Trump on the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence coming up next year.
Right.
He's thrilled because this guy is an American in his soul, in his being. Okay,
it runs through his veins.
He loves the country, and for him, the opportunity to be president at that time. Do you remember? What do you remember about 1976 at the Bicentennial?
Oh God, that was a huge deal throughout the entire country. I mean, you're coming off of a time where you had Richard Nixon that left, you had Watergate going on, Spiro Agnew went to jail for tax evasion, Jerry Ford came into office, and the bicentennial celebration, it took years of planning, but all of America rose up in unison to celebrate that. I don't remember protests then like we're seeing protests now. How about you?
I don't recall. I mean, obviously there were during the Vietnam War, and then
which is
Watergate,
different.
There were protests, wanting to get President Nixon out of office. There were not, other than those protests, and some of those were somewhat violent, as I recall. Certainly, lots of things were burned, and we, and shortly before that, we had the Watts riots, and
the riots in '69 in Detroit,
right? So, I mean, violence was a factor at that time. What I remember about the actual day, July 4th, 1976, was I went to Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus here in the community center that afternoon. And then we sat out on the U of A mall and watched the fireworks because that's where the fireworks emanated from in those days.
I love the circus. Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey, they were
out of business today.
Out of business today. Sadly, they were great. I remember going to see that with my grandmother. She took all the grandkids, and there were a ton. So here's another one. My grandmother, my dad's mom, started in a business doing windows and doors, Kaufman Windows and Doors out of Michigan. And she started that because my grandfather was busy and said to a friend of his, "Hey, can you give my wife something to do?" And he goes, "Oh, sure, I'll have her sell windows and doors." Thinking, okay, she may sell windows and doors to a house, to a builder. And her first building was the Chrysler Center in downtown Detroit.
Oh.
And then she just went from there. She became
there was a lot of windows there, I suspect.
Oh, yeah. She became a very wealthy woman. Loved to spend money on the grandkids. Just did it right. Everybody respected her or feared her. I'm not sure which one, but very elegant lady. This is a lady that would go buy new clothes, and the clothing shops that would sell to her would take out the label in the back of the dress that said like 14 and make it a 12, or like a 12 and make it a 10. Here, try this on. Oh, I'm not a 10. Oh, absolutely you are.
Confidence builder.
Absolutely. And then due to when she passed away, due to estate taxes and everything else, all that money went away. Which is one of the reasons why I do today what I do.
Yeah, you're trying to help people both build for retirement and save
and
tax
pass on that intergenerational wealth.
Absolutely.
But, so back to Ringling Brothers, these leftists that want to get rid of all of that, save the elephants. Come on. Seriously?
They ruined something that the kids and their families had enjoyed for over 120
Yeah,
years.
they say these animals are abused. You don't abuse your bread and butter. You don't abuse the things that bring you money. That's just the bottom line.
We're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break to hear from our great sponsors. Eb and I will be right back, and we're free balling today, just talking about stuff. Maybe we'll get to the news here, maybe not, who knows. And thanks for being with us here today on Inside Track on Big Wednesday. And this is the third hour of Big Wednesday. We'll be right back.
It's termite season.
Hi, it's me.
And bugs fear the blue trucks from Essential Pest Control. Go blue at Essential Pest Control. We'll eliminate those bugs, bees, and termites. And stop paying too much to that national provider. Buy local for great service and affordable rates. Call Essential Pest Control because termites fear the blue.
Run for your life.
Call for the blue trucks from Essential Pest Control. 886-3029. That's 886-3029. Or check online at essentialpest.com.
This is Eb Wilkinson with Wilkinson Wealth Management, where we manage money for gun owners. What does it mean to retire comfortably and remain comfortably retired? It means designing a plan that allows you to do the things you want to do, outpace inflation, and never run out of money in your lifetime. If you want to retire comfortably and remain comfortably retired, call me, Eb Wilkinson, at 777-1911. That's 777-1911 or WilkinsonWealthMGMT.com.
I'm proud to welcome my good friends at Tucson Iron and Metal Retail to Inside Track as an advertiser. Jamie Kipper and her staff are conservation experts. They sell round and square steel tubing, metal plate and roofing materials, as well as new and used steel, aluminum, and stainless steel to ranchers, artists, interior designers, roofers, as well as you do-it-yourselfers out there. Tucson Iron and Metal Retail is open Monday through Fridays, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., and Saturdays, 8 a.m. to noon. Tucson Iron and Steel Retail, 701 East 36th Street. Call 520-209-1576. That's 520-209-1576. Or go to TucsonIronRetail.com. Come by and be sure to ask for Jamie. Tucson Iron and Steel Retail. This is what conservation and repurposing is all about.
Welcome back to Inside Track with Bruce Ash on the Live the Dream Media Network. Now back to our show.
Welcome back to Inside Track. We've been talking about our families, talking about this past weekend, talking about things that are just they're purely American, and we talk to others about their life experiences and so on. We don't have much time the way we do the show to do ours. If I can, before we go on to some news items, I also wrote about my dad in another Facebook post. And
your dad was a great man.
Oh, thank you. He still is quite an influence in my life. Thank you for saying that. He quit high school when he was 15 years, 10 months, right at the end of the Second World War, and was a military policeman. He was actually a body escort. And
how old was he?
15 years, 10 months. He fudged.
Did he slip a number on the year of his birth?
I'm not sure how he did it, but he managed to get it done when he was 15 years, 10 months. I'm not sure.
So many people that in that era did that.
No, he didn't do it out of patriotic, incentive. He did it because he lived in the bowels of the Lower East Side, New York City, and wanted to get out of the ghetto.
Sure.
And the very first duty assignment he had was as a guard at the Brooklyn Navy Yard, which literally you could see from looking across from where he lived in the Delancey and Houston Street area.
But
the
he
Lower
had
East Side.
food.
He did have food, and it was quite an experience for him. And served actually he was at the U of A when he got out of the Army. Got his GED while he was in the Army and got into the U of A. That was actually something he found out about on one of his trips to California to give final honors to a soldier who had died after the war by illness, and saw in January blue skies, warm temperatures, the palm trees blowing on the mall, and lots of young women who he thought were gorgeous.
Yep.
And that was his motivation to go to the University of Arizona. Again, he became a Wildcat for life, but that was not how he started. It was about pretty girls, and that's,
It's always about girls.
yeah, that's right. And he served another time as an officer in the Army Reserve after getting his ROTC. He never graduated from the U of A. He left 12 units short when I came along in the spring of 1952. But he did get his commission, and by that time he was a military intelligence officer and served for another 8 years after that. He didn't go to very many reserve meetings, though. He went to summer camps, and the local guy who was sort of the commandant here locally was a guy, Holden Olson, who was a banker at Southern Arizona Bank at the time, and he and my dad really got along well. And Holden gave him a little bit of leeway on reserve meetings, but this was a different generation, and serving in the military was an honor, and I think it is an honor again. But the things
now it is
the things that the left does, not liberals, things that the left does to dishonor military service, honorable service to your community, and also I have to say, I think they're hell bent for leather to make sure that the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence is going to be as miserable as it possibly can be, and that's what I fear.
Christy Simone on the show right before us played a piece by Dennis Prager.
Yeah. Oh, what a
talking about
powerful
the difference between the left and liberals. What a powerful piece, and he says it very well. So the leftists, the progressives, are out to destroy this country. Bottom line, and they're going to do anything they can to do it, and that's why they're pissed about Donald Trump calling in the Marines to go.
Oh,
to
they
Los
made
Angeles.
it seem like they called in the devils.
It's actually they called in the devil dogs.
I know they do, but they
need
were
to get
looking
the
at
term. They need to get the term correct,
right?
And why did they call in the Marines? Because we could get the job done. If they called in the Army, number one, they need a lot more people to do the job. Not denigrating the Army. We love the Army.
They operated in a different sort of a pace.
They do, and they called in the Marines not to violate the Posse Comitatus Act, but be there to guard stuff.
They were there to preserve order.
Absolutely.
Okay, and the president absolutely has that right. And they saw what happened in the summer of George Floyd. They saw what happened where the guard wasn't called in,
right,
or it's called in too late. And Trump was not going to let that happen. He did his best to listen to the governor of Wisconsin. He did his best to give the Seattle mayor as well as Washington governor leeway. And they never called in the guard until Trump did at that time as well. Right. I don't understand this whole thing trying to take that obligation that he has to preserve order. And now California is suing the Trump administration again over the use of the National Guard and the Marines.
Well, stand in line, California. There's about 249 suits ahead of you.
Well, I hope that one is resolved soon, because that is something that if we have a problem in this country, we need absolute authority upheld to make sure that those declarations are observed.
Absolutely. Oh, and by the way, you saw that once again in Aurora, Colorado, the Tren de Aragua gangs.
Tell me about that.
They went into another apartment building and tried to take over and cause problems. Now they were able to hunt down and capture 3 or 4 of the individuals already, and they're here illegally,
Right.
So they're going to
And committing illegal acts.
in a mostly peaceful takeover of Aurora, Colorado, involving guns and knives and explosive devices and drugs and everything like that. And Tom Homan, enough of this, and he's going in and he's cleaning house.
So let's just be clear for people watching in. This is not eliminating every illegal who's here in America.
No,
The focus is on dangerous felons,
absolutely.
people who have overstayed visas or came into the country illegally to begin with, and are dangerous to this country and to the communities that they live in.
Correct. He is not hunting down ma and pa in the bakeries or the maids or anything
And even
like that.
and even in the businesses where ICE has gone in, okay, it's not to roust the man or woman who may be here illegally, but who is paying taxes and has a job and not involved in illegal activities.
Right. Now, what Homan did say, but if you're hanging around these people, these violent criminals, when we capture them,
Right.
and you're there and you're here illegally, I'm sorry. We're taking you too. So here it is. Suspected Tren de Aragua gang members terrorize apartment complex in shocking doorbell video. Aurora Police Chief says incident mirrors the notorious TDA takeover that gained national attention last year. This came out 11 hours ago. Armed crew of 9 suspected TDA gang members were caught on camera wreaking havoc at a Colorado apartment complex earlier this month. In an incident, Aurora police are calling very reminiscent of the violence previously incited in the area by the Venezuelan gang. Apparently, they were knocking on an apartment door of a Venezuelan family that just moved in 2 days prior to the incident. They didn't answer the door.
Probably to terrorize and extort them.
No, to extort them. Absolutely. Following the incident, police began investigating and identifying the suspects in the video. On June 11th and 12th, law enforcement arrested 2 suspects. 4 others known to be involved in prior criminal activity were also detained. The police chief says, I want everyone to understand and to know that we are ahead of this. This isn't something we're reacting to. This is something that we're proactively addressing with everything we can possibly do. So Aurora is the 3rd largest city in Colorado,
Yeah.
With a population of more than 398,000. TDA, you're seeing this in Colorado, all
In
these
other states as well.
and other states as well. You are not seeing this in the bayou. I'm just saying.
I wonder why.
Yeah, you're not. But I'll tell you what, the crabs and gators are going to be fat this year. That's just the way it is. But you're not seeing it in the bayou.
So the other news that's come out in just the last couple of days from Tom Homan's office is nearly 1 million illegals who have self-deported, either taking the award, the $1,000, or not, but they have decided that it's better for them to go back to their country of origin, or even if they're from a country other than Mexico, go back to Mexico and stay there. And not stay in the United States until they can go back to their country of origin.
So what he's doing is working.
It is working.
This is perfect.
And
Then one of the meat packing plants I just read yesterday, the feds came in, raided it, got rid of, like 250 illegals at the meat packing plant, and now all the locals started showing up looking for the jobs.
right. Yeah, there's a job opportunity for them. Let's talk about
To
Alex.
include Mexicans that are here legally.
Right. Let's talk about Alex Padilla, Senator Alex Padilla from California, who charged twice, not just once, but charged twice toward the podium where Secretary of Homeland Security, Noem, was giving a presser. Taken down. He wasn't arrested. He was detained briefly. Everybody knows about that. What they don't know, that Kristi Noem actually had a meeting with him privately after the event took place.
Yeah, for about 15 or 20 minutes.
Exactly. Supplied him with her phone number. Now this guy is using the event as a fundraising scheme for his own reelection.
Absolutely. And then speaking of that, let's talk about Waltz and the guy who
another one of those killings where we don't know very much about the killer, except what they're telling us that maybe he was a Trump supporter. And as it turns out, he probably wasn't.
And why would you say that, Bruce?
I mean, this is a dangerous time for politicians in general in terms of attacks on them. And there's no excuse for that. Whether it's Padilla, making sort of a lunge toward a Homeland Security official, or a mayor, and look, as many disputes and differences of opinion I might have had or you might have had with public officials, the very, very last thing in the world we would ever do as responsible Americans is either threaten their life or harm them.
You don't do that in this world. By the way, the Vance Bolter, the suspect in the assassination of the Minnesota lawmakers, he was appointed by Tim Walz for something, hang on, let me pull it up here. Let's see.
But again, that wasn't really reported
to a state board. No, they're not going to report that. If you listen to CNN, this guy's a right-wing wacko, and yet Tim Walz is the one who reported him to one of the state boards.
That's where they roll.
Take a look at every one of these terrorist acts. It's all done by leftist, Democrat progressives.
So in the month of May, the Trump administration blocked every border migrant in May. Not one was taken for other disposition in America and allowed entry.
How much was it during Biden in a typical month?
It was in May of 2024. It was 64,000.
So down from 64,000 to zero.
Zero.
Perfect. That's what we want to see.
And that's why this resistance is coming so hard. In Tucson, Tim Steller still thinks that the violence that occurred there was mostly okay. There were people who were macing, who were tear gassing Tucson police officers, spitting on them, roughing them up, graffitiing buildings, trying to break windows. I don't know what about that
is mostly peaceful.
And so they've said this in Los Angeles. They're trying to use the same sort of instance here. Well, it only happened at Valencia and Country Club. Okay, so it doesn't mean...
Or in Colorado. Oh, it was only a couple apartment buildings.
Or, it was 3 blocks in Los Angeles.
Right.
Which it wasn't. It was larger than that.
Or just a city block in Seattle.
Yeah.
It's only the chop zone. Come on. Let them do what they want.
Right. I mean, it just... They have no ability to look at things right. Mayor Bass and pop singer Olivia Rodrigo freaks out over illegal alien deportation. L.A. simply wouldn't exist without immigrants. Now,
without immigrants or without those illegal immigrants?
Without slaves who they can get to work.
That's what the narrative should be.
That's right. Well, this came from the Washington Post. But that's the angle. Okay, they want cheap labor. If they can't get it in China, okay, and by the way, Chinese companies lowering their prices on goods coming to America because of the tariffs.
Yep.
So it'll be the same price, and people have the opportunity to buy the same Chinese crap that they've been buying for the last 10 or so years.
Then you've got Chobani, CEO,
God,
saying the food system needs immigration to function. Bruce?
Same. I mean,
I love the Chobani yogurt.
I'm not sure I'm going to eat those 3 Chobani little cups that we have in the refrigerator right now.
No, I'm sorry. That needs to hand it to the guy who says, "Hungry, need food," on the street corner. Here you go.
Yeah,
I'm not willing to support those companies that support slave labor. I'm just not willing to do it.
So after this business that happened in Los Angeles and other cities around the country, by 12 points, voters support Trump using National Guard to quell LA riots. And in fact, the percentage of blacks and legal immigrants from Latin countries,
Yeah.
even higher percentage of those individuals polled. And this was a Harris Harvard poll that showed this. It says Harvard Harris poll, majority of Americans say Kilmar Abrego Garcia likely an MS-13 gang member.
Well, I think all the videos show that he was.
Yeah.
But at least the poll says that the majority of Americans believe that. And Trump enjoys majority support from black and Hispanic voters.
He was underwater by a good 18 to 20 points 4 years ago.
Yeah, and look where we're at now. Thank you, Joe Biden. Now, I got to tell you, there's a lot of people who disagree with me. Biden becoming president was one of the best things to happen to this country because it woke everybody up as to what was going on, as did COVID. I mean, look at the schools now. I mean, in Chicago right now, it's reported that half the classrooms are empty because the parents have taken their kids out and they're putting them in either, teaching them themselves or, basis type schools.
Well, I hope you're right about that because there's a bunch of them here in town we can't account for either to increase vacancy in schools in TUSD, amphitheater, and so on.
How much of that emptiness has to do with the self-deportation?
It could be, Eb, that's a great point, and it might be. Maybe very much a part of it. Actress Ellen Barkin shares poem calling Kristi Noem a C word as Homeland Security Secretary rushed to a hospital. She was at a biohazard lab a couple days ago. She had some sort of anaphylactic response to what that
Sure.
exposure was, and was taken to a hospital. And this is what an actress has to say.
And she's not calling her a champion.
No, she's not. No Kings, a lesson for leftist billionaires. You can't buy an uprising. First of all, the whole, I don't know who does their
PR work.
PR work or image building or makes these selections. Who is in their polling host of people? No Kings. That was like the stupidest moniker that you could use, and it came after all their other stupid monikers before that. Every week there's a different thing that these guys try, and none of it works.
Nope. I mean, take a look at it. The spin I'm putting on it is, why are the left so pissed off at King Charles and the British Empire that they want to get rid of him? It's not their choice.
Well, it may be their choice if the Parliament decides they're.
Well, now I'm talking about the
peerages.
no kings things here. Trump came out and said, I don't know if you heard it. He says, "Oh, thank God these people don't want to have a king. They're supporting me."
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
I like how he spun that.
Yesterday, New York City mayoral candidate Brad Lander. This is the biggest amount of publicity he's received during his entire run for mayor. He's like in 8th place or something. He was released after after being under arrest by ICE. He's accused of trying to shield an illegal alien from arrest.
I saw that.
And if you saw them taking him
Yes.
away, he looks like he's one of these guys, Mahatma Gandhi. They're taking him to jail. Okay, he's slumped back, and he's like just prostrating himself. What a poser this guy is!
Absolutely, he's got to get that attention.
Unbelievable. New York Comptroller Lander, Trump ratcheting up conflict to turn U.S. into police state. So I want to talk for a second about Rabbi Sam Cohen, who is a friend. I've known him for probably 25 years.
And I support his synagogue.
We agree on the Dodgers. We're both diehard Dodger fans. But he went into a tirade last Sunday's show on an unnamed radio station about Trump being a fascist, comparing him to Hitler. comparing all kinds of things that are way, way beyond the pale. I actually recorded the thing to play here. We don't have enough time to play it, but it was disgraceful. And for the same exact things that he was criticizing Trump on with respect to illegal removals here in the country, and Trump taking charge of that, he had no problem at all on a topic which he and I both agree upon, and that's Israel's right to defend themselves and their sovereignty. He was all for the president taking action that he did, okay? And obviously there's a group of now Republican senators, Massey and perhaps Rand Paul, who are talking about blocking his ability to send B-2 bombers to bomb Iran. But Cohen, because it is his own personal interest, he was all too happy to infer without ever mentioning his name that it was good for the United States to be doing that. But the same sort of leadership that the president has shown on following up on his campaign promises to remove dangerous illegal immigrants to this country, that he was appalled with and went on this tirade as if he was a crazy man.
Let's get him on the show.
Well, like minds agree on that. And I think we probably will have him on sometime later this summer.
Sam, if you're listening, we'd love to have you on.
Yeah, we like you, Sam.
And you know I like you, Sam.
And you really do support
Yes.
Good.
By the way, they fundraised to buy the Torah for his synagogue.
Yeah.
I bought the book of Deuteronomy.
Not Numbers, being a numbers guy?
I did not want number. No, look, get me out of Israel. Let's move on from there. I wanted Deuteronomy. Now they're back trying to raise money again, and I'm doing a whisper campaign into one of his congregants' ears, saying, "Sell the book again." He said, "But we sold it once. Don't worry, just sell it again." I'll buy Deuteronomy one more time.
Bernie Sanders demands Schumer, DNC ban billionaires' super PACs from primaries. For the same guys that tried to push Kamala Harris and anoint her without one vote ever being taken by a Democrat voter for president.
Speaking about no kings.
Right. He endorses fellow socialist, by the way, Zohan Mamdan for New York City mayor.
I've never heard of that guy.
And you won't hear about him after the primary also. But
I did hear they made a movie, You Don't Mess with the Zohan.
I remember. Really? It was Zohan?
Yeah, that was an Adam Sandler movie.
Okay. Zohan?
I think it was Zohan.
All right. Well, so before we end the show today and get ready to go back to work, Israel.
Yep. You Don't Mess with the Zohan, 2008, Adam Sandler.
Okay, there you go. You're very good on your laptop.
Israel.
U.S. ambassador, whether Ayatollah leaves or not, is irrelevant. We're ensuring they don't get nukes. Mike Huckabee. There has been suggestions that maybe the president wants to kill the mullahs, the Ayatollah particularly. I was when this first came up and this whole business with regime change came up, I was concerned about that. And I told a couple people that I had concerns based upon past events. We've been dealing with these people for 47 years. They have never done anything but bad things, not just to Israel, but to their own people, to countries that surround them. They're now trying to hold that entire region, and if they could, the entire world, as hostages to nuclear violence. I think if that opportunity avails itself, I think we should.
Yeah.
These people have completely ruined that nation. They say 80% of the people hate the mullahs, hate what's gone on in their country. I don't know if that number is accurate, but I would presume there's a huge number of Iranians who are sick and tired of being sick and tired with the political, spiritual violence, and the constant fear that this regime has put into everybody living in Iran.
Ever since the fall of the Tsar or fall of the Shah in 1979.
And he was no bargain either. Okay, he was our guy, but he was no bargain either.
Which one would you rather have? At least under him, the people were free to a certain extent.
There were some issues, but you're right. And these guys are an existential threat. You're a gun guy. I'm a gun guy. If somebody puts a gun up to your head and says, "I'm going to kill you," I trust him that he is probably going to kill me.
Absolutely.
And that's what they have said repeatedly, thousands and thousands and thousands of times. We're going to kill everybody in Israel.
And why would you not believe that?
I believe it.
Yeah, that's what they want to do.
And that's why
And
get that bunker buster, get the Moab, whatever you need to do.
well, they've already dispatched dozens of mid-air refueling jets. Thank you, Air Force. Because that's what's going to be required to do that. And think about these B-2 pilots. Here they are living on base in Missouri, cutting the grass on Saturday, take off Sunday for a 35-hour trip, maybe longer, drop some bombs, 2 bombs, turn around, fly another 35 hours back. Then they're having cocktails on Tuesday at the Officers Club in Missouri and emptying the trash.
Citizen soldiers.
Yep. As opposed to being overseas. Now, we know they can't be overseas.
Right.
We know that. And I get that. But boy, what a...
We have a lot of news to look forward to. Insiders, that's going to do it for our show today. Check our Facebook and X pages for the latest news and views on our news. All of our Inside Track podcasts are available on Live, Live the Dream Media, and Facebook. Thanks again for joining us today. Until next Wednesday when we return, this is Bruce Ash.
And Eb Wilkinson.
Wishing you a very good rest of your day. Be sure to join us again in 167 hours.
Thanks, Bruce.